Hello and welcome to lesson 20 of 21 for 21, the Sports Media Podcast. I'm Stuart in Dusseldorf as always. Joining me is Jamie in Barcelona. Jamie, how are things with you?
Good, Stuart. How's everything over in Germany?
Yeah, it's all very nice. Good to see that we're in after 20 now, creeping very closer to that number 21 mark.
Yeah, certainly. And we've had 19 great lessons so far, so that's maybe a good opportunity to introduce our 20th guest to the podcast. A really interesting one. I'm very excited to hear the story that he's got to bring us today. It's Tom Bradbury of one of the co-owners of Walton Hersham Football Club. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Hi guys, it's a pleasure to be on here today, and I heard you're saving the best lessons till last.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
We're also keeping up our Tom quota. So if we've learned anything about sports and media, it's if your name's Tom, you're gonna have a cool job. So I think you're definitely. As I was saying, Jamie, just before we went live, we've got different categories of guests, but Tom certainly fits into our. I wish I'd thought of that first category of guest. So we're not keeping the listeners waiting much longer. So Tom, what is it that you've been doing that attracted us to you? And I'm kind of a bit jealous that you've been doing.
Yeah, no. So essentially, I'm a owner and director of a non-league football club called Walton Hersham FC, and I'm only 21 years old. And we took over the football club, me and a few of my mates, when we were just 19. So there's quite a unique story there, and how it came about really was we all went to school together, and one of our mutual friends, Colosro, he was quite familiar with the area, the local football going on in Walton. So this is southwest London in the UK, and he kind of got wind that the old owners wanted to give up the club, but they wanted to give it to people who had the best interests at heart. So through Colosro, and he kind of rallied us a little bit, and together we put forward this idea, the strategy to modernise the club both on the pitch and off the pitch. So when we took over, we instantly changed the club badge. We had a new coaching staff, new playing squad, and that's kind of filtered into our media strategy as well going forward. So initially, we didn't really have too many plans for TikTok, but circumstances kind of changed that with the COVID pandemic, the first lockdown, and just the sheer boom of TikTok, really. And perhaps by chance, we just hit upon a certain segment on the app, and people seem to really resonate with our story on that platform. So I suppose that's why I'm here now today to talk about that and about the football club more in general.
Yeah, certainly. That's the sort of how I came across your story, if you like. Was this it suddenly appeared that you hit? I think was it 500,000 followers earlier this year, or toward the end of last year, perhaps. And I was sort of like, well, 500,000 followers on TikTok for a football team that I've never heard of. Like, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I saw that. I think just today it was announced that FC Barcelona have the top watched TikTok channel in Spain or in Europe. I think it was in Spain. Sort of, and the views were like 3 times higher than Real Madrid, for example. So it was by a long way.
Yeah.
But to see this kind of like, I mean, am I right in thinking it's equivalent of sort of like Division 9 team that Walton and Hersham are in?
Yeah, that's right. So it's been really surreal, to be honest, because for context, with the Premier League clubs, we worked it out. I worked out before Christmas, and I think we had more followers on our TikTok than 4 or 5 Premier League clubs. And for context, they're in the first division of the English football system, and we're in the equivalent of the 9th division. So there's eight leagues between us and the Premier League, and yet we have, or had at the time, more followers than Southampton, Burnley, I think Brighton as well, and there might have been 1 or 2 others. So it's been remarkable, really, and yeah, no, it's been a brilliant ride, and it's quite surreal, to be honest.
So let's just go back to the start, because as you said, TikTok is more of a more recent development. So in 2019 when the old owners were looking for someone to have the best interest of the club at heart? How did you convince the old owners that you and your group of 19-year-old mates were those right people?
I think it kind of helps that the plans we put forward were quite ambitious, but also we had specific duties and commitments that we made to the old owners, because there's a little bit of tension in the locality of the football club. For example, we have an arch rival club which ground shares with us, and there were ideas being floated about combining Walton Hersham with this other club to create a sort of Walton United club. And I think one of the stipulations of taking over would have been to completely block any kind of that ever happening. So we were very important to bring that on board. But I think as well, with what we did in the first year, is that the club was at the lowest point it had been in 10 years. It recently got relegated just the season before we took over. And in its history, it was at the lowest point it ever has been in. Like the club was formed in 1945. It's got a pretty rich history in non-league football in England. For example, Sir Stanley Matthews used to be the club president. Walton's been to Wembley. It's beaten Brian Clough's teams in the past. So we wanted to kind of bring back the glory days to the club a little bit. Although that first year was it was a huge learning curve, to say the least. And for where the club is now compared to that first year, I think we've come really far. I mean, for example, the attendances in that first year, we had around 40 people in the 1920 season coming on average. But so far in 21-22, this current season, we're having nearly 250 people come down each game. So we've seen a staggering increase just in the local support, really, and it's been brilliant to reconnect with the community.
So is this sort of a football manager dream come true then, like for you and your mates that took on this challenge? Because that's kind of what it sounds like.
Oh no, it's brilliant. And to sum it up, me and a few of the other lads, we created a pro clubs team on FIFA during the lockdown. So we were in our first season running the club, and we named it Walton Hersham FC. And the name was taken because some of the players had also done the same thing. So it's quite funny, but it's also, of course, it's very surreal because we're making big decisions about the management, the direction of the club, and we have been in interesting situations in the past already. I mean, for example, we got a lot of things wrong, to be quite frank, early on in that first year. For example, we changed the club badge, and if you see the club badge now compared to the old badge, I think there's a remarkable improvement. But we were quite naive in that we didn't really publicly consult the fans at the time, and they were quite rightly angry about that. And looking back on it now, we should have done it so differently. But no, it's been amusing because I think we've managed definitely to convince the fans that, you know, we are the real deal. At first, they were very apprehensive. You know, they just saw it as a university work experience project. I think the famous line from a mini documentary we did is that, you know, once the season starts, we'll be on holiday in Ibiza, something like that. And it's quite funny, but I think slowly but surely we turned the club around and we're able to get promoted in the middle of it. So the fans are happy at the moment.
So let's talk a little bit about Tom Bradbury then, and
Yeah,
sort of who you are and your role in the club. And you're also studying at the same time. Am I right in thinking?
yeah, that's right. So I'm currently in my final year doing an undergraduate degree in politics at the University of Exeter. And it's obviously been a fascinating time for politics, especially very recently because I'm currently writing a dissertation on the relationship between NATO and Russia. So in a way, the events going on and unfolding at the moment, they're very relevant to my dissertation. And to be honest, I found myself recently just consuming endless news about the whole situation. It's extraordinary, but no, yeah, it's definitely interesting to balance my responsibilities with the football club with, you know, the pressurized final year and all of that sort of thing. But overall, I think it's been a really enjoyable experience. It's nice to kind of follow your passion away from the university experience. Because I mean, I love football. The other lads love football, And that's kind of what brought us all here together in the first place, really, because if we didn't believe in changing something and creating something good at Walton Hersham, then we wouldn't be doing it.
So you guys, you would play football together as kids or at secondary school, I guess. So how, first of all, when you first got the club, what sort of stopped you from just picking yourselves in the next game? How did you sort of, I know you're doing your politics degree, but how did you deal with that sort of thing? So I guess they had an established players, an established coaching staff who were all older than you. So how did you deal with those challenges of telling these people that you're in charge now?
Yeah, it was definitely a very interesting experience, especially in the first year, as I touched on. For example, I still get mocked a little bit by the other lads because when we took over the club, I was like, "Oh, I'll play left back for a few games in the cup games. You know, the games that don't matter really. I'll happily play." And for context, I'm not very good at football, and especially not at left back. So yeah, it was quite funny. And to be honest, two of the lads, I'd say, so Ben and Colosro, they were actually really good at football when we were at school, and they probably were good enough to be at the level to play for Walton. But then you have a dilemma where you're hiring a manager, but you're also playing under the manager in the team. It's just not viable, really. So I think we made the right decision on that front. But with the players, obviously, a lot of them will have been older than us. For example, at the moment, one of our starting centre backs, Max Huswick, I think he's nearly 40 years old now, and he actually made his debut for Walton Hersham in 1999, which is the year before I was born. So it's crazy, but I think they've really bought into it as well, the players, because not only do they enjoy the media side of it, you know, they see their goals, they see the highlights and the TikToks, but I think they also see just the general progress that the club has made. You know, we're getting more fans coming in to support them. The kit looks great. So yeah, it's been brilliant.
That maybe segs quite nicely then into, I mentioned before, I saw you post about 500,000 followers on TikTok. You're now at some 565,000, almost 66,000 followers, I think.
That's right.
Almost 15,000 followers on Instagram at the time of recording. Has that been an intentional kind of effort or a conscious effort? Did you have a plan going into that? What? Because I understand you're the kind of the public liaison, the communication director, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So at first, it was probably by accident. For example, we filmed a mini documentary just 6 months into our ownership. So that was with 90 Minutes, and you can find that on our Walton Hersham FC YouTube channel. And it was quite an interesting insight into the first few months of our experience owning a football club and being the youngest owners in world football. But I hit on this by accident during the first lockdown, whereby people were just posting randomly on TikToks just to entertain themselves, really. And I decided, why don't I put up a singular part of this documentary and then caption it, you know, the youngest owners of world football, and see what happens. And I wasn't really expecting anything to happen, but it got a little bit of traction in the algorithm. And then through that, we decided, let's set up the actual football club account and start posting different documentary clips onto that as a starting platform. So it kind of went from there. And then when football was resumed, when we were playing again, full credit to Sarte, she came up with the idea of making matchday vlogs. So the first one he filmed, I think it got 1.2 million views in total, and people clearly resonated with it because it kind of introduced the whole ground, introduced a few of us, a few of the players, and it gave you that real grassroots feel. And I think it kind of connected with the audience in a really good way. So we've now turned that into a rolling series, and now we have a clear content strategy plan going forward.
So that came about pretty randomly. I mean, were you a TikTok user personally beforehand, or was it literally just you were bored almost in lockdown and you were just playing around on your phone?
Yeah, I mean, I'd never really used TikTok before the lockdown. For example, I mean, I knew about it from 2018 or so, but I thought it was just a a sort of music dancing app. I didn't really connect with the app on a particular level, and I think a lot of other people felt the same. But TikTok's really boomed since then. It's huge. I have a lot of LinkedIn connections with employees who work for TikTok, and they're endlessly creating new strategic partnerships. A lot with sports clubs as well, to be fair, and the Champions League, the Euros, loads of different events, and it's been great to see because I think it's a really democratic platform in terms of anyone can post a video and it can go viral. Whereas with Instagram and other apps, it's a lot more based on how much you're willing to initially put in terms of advertising or marketing payments, really.
So for an average match day, so for your game this weekend or this midweek, for example, what would be the process if you're busy and watching the bad news, unfortunately, unfold for your dissertation? So who actually does what on a match day for Walton Hersham on the social side, but also on the operations side?
Yeah, so we're extremely fluid with how we run the football club. So what we do on the match day completely depends on how many of us there are available. So on the best day possible, all 7 of us are around, we're there, and we all perform our own duties, which again are pretty flexible. But it gets interesting when it goes down to maybe 3 or 4 people because a few are away at uni or they've got family commitments, job commitments, that sort of thing. But for example, we all muck in on the match days. For example, I've done stewarding, I've done commentary, boardroom duties. We've done raffles as well. Tickets on the door. We're all involved doing that, and I think you can see that in the match day vlogs as well. For example, George is the stadium announcer every now and then, and it's really, you can have a lot of good fun with that. Goal scorer of Walton Hersham, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we're very flexible with it. So we're all doing different things at different times. One of the most perhaps interesting to an outside observer though would be the boardroom duties, because not only do we have to provide teas and coffees for opposition board members, but we have to also provide food for the refs. So it can get a little bit awkward when you're very passionate on the touchline about a certain decision that might not have gone your way, and then afterwards you're in the boardroom face to face with them, and you're giving them pizza. So yeah, no, it's been a funny experience.
Do you think some of this transparency is what's brought you kind of the audience that you've had? Because certainly for like a bigger football club, to see the inner workings, it's near on impossible. But to see what you guys are doing, and you've been so open about it from the start with your documentary, and do you think that's part of the reason for the success that you've seen in terms of audience?
Yeah, I think we've kind of hit on a unique segment in terms of that. With our ownership, it's very school-like in the fact that we've clearly been friends for a while before. It's not like we're in a serious business together, even though elements of it is. It's very based on camaraderie, and we don't act like normal owners do. So you wouldn't see normal owners on the touchline celebrating with absolute scenes and limbs when Walton Hersham gets a crucial result at home or away. I mean, some of the scenes that we've captured for the matchday vlogs in the past, especially post lockdown as well. I mean, it was just great to be back watching football, and it was great to be watching Walton score great goals, winning football matches. And at the end of the day, we have key footballing objectives as well. So when the stakes get really high, we're not just going to sit up in a boardroom or in a box like Premier League owners or other owners would and try and stay cool and calm. We're gonna live our emotions, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what football's all about, really. So I think that side of it has really resonated with people, and I also think we've been able to kind of tell that story in a good way as well.
But you mentioned the other owners of people in the combined counties league. So I guess they'd be maybe local shop owners or local business people, and all of a sudden they're sharing a pizza with a group of students. So how does it work on the business side? I mean, if I understand rightly, you were sort of gifted the club at first, but then how do you keep it running? Is it mainly through ticket sales, or are you able to monetize the TikTok videos?
Yeah, obviously for a non-league football club, especially in England, it's been well documented how the finances are crucial, and Walton Hersham Football Club is not an exception to that. The biggest challenge we found in our first year was to raise enough finance to stay afloat, and between the seven of us, we were able to kind of spread and cover the costs, the risk, in some ways, but it wasn't a viable strategy going forward long term. So that's kind of why, in a way, we've orientated our strategy around the media potentially going forward, because obviously TikTok is a great platform, but with the creator fund, you don't really get too much money itself. So TikTok's been good for transferring followers to other platforms, but also through getting the exposure and the credibility that we need to gain sponsorships. To be fair, I should mention Classic Football Shirts here, because they've been brilliant with us and they're our main kit sponsor. And when we first started talking to them, we didn't really have too many followers on TikTok, but I think we managed to pitch the vision quite well. And I think it's worked out on both sides this year. And it's been brilliant to be in partnership with them. But yeah, finances are crucial, and we do have some key costs to pay. For example, we live, I was about to say we live in a rented facility. We don't, but we play in a rented facility, and that has an annual fee. Um, and traditionally for football clubs, usually their revenue will come through sponsorship or ticket sales or merchandise. But we'd like to go beyond that and also start exploring, viable, sustainable revenue content streams in the media.
So do you have a conscious approach of how you kind of intend to grow on this success that you've already seen with TikTok and Instagram?
Yeah, definitely. For example, two of the lads, Kolodro and Sartej, are actually next year going full time for a year with the football club. So what we're planning to do is focus a lot more on our YouTube. We haven't really advertised our YouTube at all yet, but we'd like to transfer the following from TikTok over to YouTube and grow that channel with good original content, more of the same, but also new series, different moments, different highlights. We've got loads of ideas for that. But with that as well, it's actually quite interesting. I listened to the lesson, I think it was Dr. Alex Fenton with the University of Salford, talking about the class of 92, creating partnerships with the university to get people in. And quite interestingly, we might be looking for a full-time videographer for next year. And at the moment, we're looking at either the University of Football Business campus in the Etihad or at Wembley. So it was quite interesting listening to Alex Fenton talk about it, and then our own experiences and our potential ideas going forward. So I suppose I've been picking up a few lessons from the pod as well.
Hey, that's great to hear.
Definitely what we like to
Yeah.
hear. We'll clip that clip of you, Tom, saying you listen to the other episodes, and we'll use that in our trailer. Speaking of the rights, though, and this is something that I've kind of linked to my job a bit, but because you're lower down football pyramid, I guess there are no rights fees you need to pay. Is that right? I mean, to publish your goals, or do you need at least permission from the league? How does that work?
How do you mean by rights goals?
I mean, so for obviously, if you are in a football league club, you wouldn't be allowed to do TikToks of your goals necessarily because Sky Sports
of course, yeah,
have the right. So yeah, so in your level, is there any even written permission, or are you just free to upload what you like?
Yeah, there's no real apparatus or structure behind it, because obviously non-league football, when you're at that level, there's nothing too serious commercially going on with the whole league. It's very much down to what the individual club decides to do. For example, the Jersey Bulls, who are also in our league, they're flying at the moment, but they usually stream every game behind a paywall, and that's absolutely fine because there's no other obligation that they have towards the league. So it's something that we're also looking at, because myself and Claudio, we've done commentary on 2 or 3 games and we stream them live on TikTok and YouTube, but we are thinking about doing that regularly, perhaps every home game from next year. because it's good content, and also I think people like tuning in to just hear two lads who own a football club not just talk about the football. I've like when we've been commentating on these streams, we're having some weird conversations on the side, talking about pre-match rituals and stuff. Claudio always has a bubble bath before a Walton home game, which is really weird in my opinion. And we've talked about pop music, that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's really strange, but like I think because it's organic and natural, people like it.
Yeah, you certainly got more insights than kind of the average football commentator that's got the notes from the last 6 games and the player backgrounds that they've got off Wikipedia or whatever.
Is that how you do it then, Jamie? Last 6
yeah,
games,
no, not to give away
Wikipedia.
too many secrets.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned
No,
that as well, because on the first time I actually ever commentated, I was really nervous, but it was a really bizarre day because Martin Tyler, the legendary Sky Sports commentator, he'd actually come down to watch the game I was commentating on. I couldn't believe it. It was like the stars had aligned, because I was there talking to him about his own experiences at Sky, because obviously he's been commentating on the Premier League since its inception, really. And I asked him for some advice, and he was like, "Just be yourself and don't pretend that you know what you're talking about when you don't." And it was a really surreal experience to get that advice from him just before I was about to do it myself. But Walton Hersham has some great links to the local football community, because Martin Tyler used to be an assistant coach back in the mid 2000s at the football club. So yeah, it's crazy some of the people that we've met through that, and you kind of learn that around the local area there's a lot of famous footballers or football connections that, yeah, no, it's fascinating.
That's really cool. What's a great little anecdote, and yeah, no pressure having him there for your first ever commentary gig.
Yeah.
Do you think these kind of technology now has allowed us to, anyone to stream a football match, or to, I don't know, stream anything if you like, do commentary, and from anywhere in the world, basically through a phone, and there are apps now where you could have, I don't know, you and 3 mates on the touchline, all with your phones, and you could have 4 different camera angles, all thanks to your iPhone. Do you think that kind of technology has allowed these sort of lower leagues, the combined counties football league, or to be able to kind of like professionalize in a way that they wouldn't have otherwise had, and reach greater audiences in that way?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the whole basis of our successful TikTok strategy so far has been filmed through iPhones. One of the match day duties we have is certain people are designated to have their phones out for key moments. And I think through using that technology, it's clearly lowered the barriers to creating good content. Because obviously, if you have high tech cameras, the more traditional way of going about it, it does cost a lot of money. With full-time videographers as well. The thing about TikTok and the apps related to TikTok is it's really easy to edit videos. So what we found with the matchday vlogs is the software that we use is pretty good. I think it's CapCut, and it's brilliant at merging different things together. You can put in funny meme clips as well and edit on top of it, and it kind of takes out a huge part of the process. Having said that, I do think that if it kind of depends on what platform you want to break into. For example, with us and the YouTube going forward, we kind of recognize that the style and the quality of content has to be different, and maybe through that you have to professionalize it a little bit more. But certainly with TikTok, it's so accessible that anyone can use it, really.
Are there any clubs or teams, or not necessarily in football, that you've been looking at as a kind of a bit of a model for how you want to develop your content strategy? You talking about like original content, you were talking about creating sort of various things.
Yeah, I mean, part of our TikTok strategy, for example, has been adapting to different memes and footballing trends on TikTok. So through that, it's brought us through many different sagas. Stop the Super League. You've got Cow the Dragon going viral, the Newcastle takeover, Man United being rubbish, sadly, because I'm a United fan. But to get those ideas, you look at different football accounts. So the great ones like Zenit, Spartak Moscow, you've got Leicester City, you've got loads of different other great accounts with great admins behind them coming up with these great ideas. But I think as well, it kind of depends on the content we want to do going forward. It's not necessarily been done before. I think the most obvious comparative case for Walton Hersham when we want to go forward on YouTube is definitely going to be #United. So I mean, what they've achieved from the ground up has been phenomenal. I think Spencer started doing stuff with that around 2013, 2014, and it's really grown since it was just him initially playing with a few mates. Yet now they're competing in the equivalent of the league above Walton Hersham, but in Essex. So they're a very similar level to us, and it's brilliant because they've really captured a fantastic audience and they produce some great content. I mean, I've watched quite a few of the videos, and the series I love the most from Spencer and is the series where they do the academy sort of trial thing. So they bring down different lads and they offer a contract to one player at the end of it. It's a really good concept for a series, and I think the nature of the videography that goes behind it, it's inspiring for us to see that it can be done and we can put our own spin on it and create our own original content as well. Because I think our story as the youngest owners in world football, and us all being mates with a historic club set up in 1945, it can really resonate as well.
It's definitely an interesting comparison between Walton and Hersham and #, because #United are a completely social media internet era club, whereas you have some history to respect, as you mentioned at the start with the badges. But with #United, are you in dialogue with the team there? Do they pass on any advice? Is there a good sharing community, or do they see you as rivals and they want to be the dominant internet football team?
Yeah, it's very funny you mention that because we've come in contact with #United quite a few times in the past, and probably more than you might initially think so. So, for example, Sartej has a good connection with him because he's done some media work with other footballing organisations. But also, there's been moments where we've been working directly with #United. So, for example, when the COVID pandemic hit and that first season for us was deemed null and void very, very quickly, a lot of non-league clubs came together to sort of protest against the very speedy and probably miscalculated FA ruling. And in that, we had a good dialogue with #United because they felt exactly the same as we had. We were both on course for promotion, and suddenly the whole landscape had shifted. So after that, our relationship has probably got even stronger. And for example, both Sartej and Clodro, two of the other lads, they actually went to go play in #United Spencer's 24-hour charity five-a-side football match stream. So it's it's another surreal moment. Is that we're watching fellow owners miss a lot of goals in these online streams and stuff, and it's fantastic to see. And Spencer's been very good to us as well because I think he clearly resonates with our predicaments, his predicaments. He'll have had similar encounters with the FA that we have had, similar problems with perhaps raising revenue or getting fans in, and maybe even like more basic problems as well, like we haven't got enough biscuits, we need to get some biscuits.
It's funny how the range of problems and dilemmas that come about as an owner of a football club.
Yeah.
What about? I'd like to know then some of the. Let's start with the low moments and some of the high moments of this past couple of years, maybe excluding kind of some of the pandemic things that we could perhaps all relate to, but something that would be unique to someone owning a ninth tier football club.
Yeah, I mean, luckily I've got more high moments and low moments to draw on, so I think they will probably be the ones I'm most drawn to. I'll certainly say commentating is a personal highlight for me, because it's a great new experience and it was really enjoyable. And I was actually quite nervous at the start, but it was fun in the end. I'd also say filming the documentary in our first year was a fantastic experience. Being in front of the camera, conveying our story in a good way, and that got a great reception as well. In footballing terms, overall, the last 3 years have been great. I'd say it's tough because our first 2 years got combined because of obvious null and void reasons. But we got promoted after those 2 years. But I'd say this season in particular, it's been fantastic. Like under our manager Scott and the assistant manager Billy, we're playing really good style of football. It's Guardiola-esque, and I don't use that lightly as well. He's very insistent on playing it around the back. He likes every player on the pitch to have experience in multiple positions, be comfortable on the ball, be comfortable in tight spaces. And a lot of the goals we score are very similar to the goals that the current Man City team scores. So it's a very weird and very rewarding feeling when you're seeing the team you own play like that. And in the first year in particular, we played a lot more kind of like random style of football. So it's nice to see the progression on that. I would say though that the low moments definitely come from the football as well though. Because we've done quite well off the pitch, the football stuff has really killed us at times. I mean, you know, when the stakes are high and you just miss out on something, then it can really hurt. And we had that experience with our FA Vars run last year. So for context, the FA Vars is the cup competition for teams around our level, and it's a nationwide cup competition with the final held at Wembley. So we had this vision of all of us 7 in, you know, proper suits, kitted out on the Wembley turf, live on BT Sport. We're talking to Rio Ferdinand, we're talking to Jake Humphries, whoever it is who's there, and it'd be a fantastic day out. And it'd be great to see the fans return to Wembley once more. So when we went out in, I think it was early May 2020 to Leighton Town, it was a shocker of a game, and I remember we all went for a meal after. It was like the last supper for the season. It was like the season finale really, and we were all there deflated, not really sure what had happened, because the way the draw had been done is that we had quite a good route to the semi-final and beyond. But it's those moments that really bring you together. And since then, I think the team's progressed even more. I mean, this season we've been fantastic in the league, much better than I expected. Certainly, you know, we were top for a good part of the season. We're now third. We're in with an outside chance of getting promoted because the top 2 do. But it's still all to play for, and I have to commend the effort of the whole squad really, because we've had some great moments.
Do you find that the success on sort of TikTok or Instagram puts a little bit more pressure on, like, oh, the last vlog, match day vlog got, you know, 1 million hits. You know, people are going to be watching us the next match day. We've got to put on a good show.
So yeah, so a lot of fans resonate with certain players. So for example, Palace Francis, who left us in December, he was always mentioned in the comments because he scored some crucial goals in the matchday vlogs, and people saying he's better than Messi, he's better than Ronaldo, all of those sort of like funny comments. And when he left to go to Bromley, who for context are in the Conference National, so it's a big step up, like 4 leagues, for example, people were still commenting, "Where's Palace Francis?" And we didn't even have to reply because other people were going, "Oh, he's left to go to Bromley." So it kind of shows that people really, you know, have engaged with the story. And we're getting that now with Harry Mills, who's like our go-to guy for the goals and assists of the team at the moment. So it's really nice to see that, and I think that will continue because it's not just us, the owners, who people resonate with. We're kind of giving the platform towards the squad and the players as well, because at the end of the day, we are a football club, and football and the team success is what it's all about.
You mentioned earlier, so a couple of your ownership group there, I guess, finished their studying, so they'll be focusing full time on the team next year. Is that the route you see yourself going down, or what's your in 5 years' time? Will you still be owning Walton Hersham, running the TikTok account, or do you see this as being just something fun to do whilst you're young, if you can tell us, of course?
Yeah, I mean, we've been having a few discussions recently between us, and the good thing about having gone to school together is that they're very open discussions, very transparent, and everyone respects each other's opinions. So I think going forward, because there's 7 of us, and because of the nature of where we're at the moment in our development, We only really need 2 people to go full time, and because Sartej and Kolozharo volunteered to, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't stop them doing that. I think it's great that they want to commit so much time and so many hours to developing the club, especially with the YouTube, but also in terms of engaging more with the community. That doesn't mean at all that the other 5 of us are going to do nothing. I mean, we're still heavily involved. And for example, for me personally, I've been an extra this year, and I've been an extra ever since we took over, really. So it's been me going between London and Exeter, depending on what I was doing and depending on what I needed to do for the club. But going forward, I'll be in London next year, probably doing like a graduate job in London. So it would actually mean I would, in theory, have more time to commit to the club. And I think that's really important for our brand as well in the media. I don't think the brand of us together really works if it is only 2 or 3 people. I think what's compelling is that it's a large group of friends who have come together to live many people's dreams. And we have to kind of keep telling that story and protect the integrity of that.
Yeah, certainly you're living Stuart's dream.
Definitely, I'm going to Google. I was living in Germany, so I don't know German lower league football as well as England. We're going to be straight on Google after this to find out. Can I buy TUSV Düsseldorf, who are the super low league team near to me? So that's my lesson from today is just go for it and take your chances, which I guess brings us nicely to our lesson, Jamie. Or did you?
I was going to sort of say, quite often we say to people, like, if someone's listening and they want to do what you do, what could they do? But I'm not sure there's a clear-cut case here.
Yeah, I've had a few thoughts, thankfully, about what my lesson would be, and I think we've certainly learned a lot over the last 3 years, and I have as a person. But I'd say that my lesson would be, especially in terms of media strategy, is don't be afraid to put engagement at the heart of it. I think what's been good with us on the TikTok is that we're quite strict with the content we put out. So you might think a video that you put together is quite good, and you think it will resonate with the audience, it will hit the algorithm, it will succeed in many ways. And then you put it up and it doesn't do as well as expected, or for lack of a better word, it flops. There's nothing wrong with pulling that and going back to the drawing board, because you have to keep trying and trying until you hit an idea that works, really. And I think with the engagement, it's also important to kind of consider which platform you're using and for what purpose. So what we've done with the TikTok is that we've been very analytical in our approach. For example, we don't want the matchday vlogs to be too long. We like them to be under a minute to kind of maximize engagement. Also with the meme posts, they're only really between 5 to 12 seconds. And what we find, for example, it's a bit of insight for you guys and everyone watching the podcast. These matchday vlogs, our average watch time is only 21 to 28 seconds. But I actually think that's quite good, because if you're on a TikTok for 20 seconds plus, then you are somewhat engaged with what content you're watching. So don't be afraid to use the numbers to inform your decisions. But obviously with that, you need to incorporate good storytelling. I think essential to capturing the attention of people is communicating your story in the right way. And so far, I think that's partly why the Walton TikTok's done so well.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's really good engagement for TikTok. I don't use TikTok, but I do like YouTube Shorts. But I spend a lot of time, and if it doesn't grab me in the first 3 to 7 seconds, it's gone. And forget about it. So that's. I think most people are. I think that's a fair valuation. So no, that's great. And so it'll be a challenge for you moving into YouTube then, where the algorithm's different and the monetization's different, and the things that work and don't work are different. Very, very different to TikTok, really. I'm certainly excited to see how this journey for Walton Hersham continues, and we'll be watching closely, Stuart, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm really looking forward to again for following your journey, and I'm sure we'll be hearing Walton and Hersham for the name for many years to come. So yeah, thanks again, Tom, for joining and for sharing sharing your adventure so far.
Yeah, no worries. It's been a pleasure to speak to you guys today.
The pleasure's been all ours. And thank you to everyone for listening. That was episode 20 of 21 for 21.